computer.
Yeah, that worked right.
We're underway. We're immortalizing everything now. So, Eleanor, I'm going to spotlight you for everyone and allow you to introduce your own talk. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Graham. Hopefully everybody can hear me. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you all this evening. Some of you I've met, some of you I know very well, but for those I haven't had the pleasure to meet yet, it's great to be with you this evening. It's a bit of an odd one. I guess you'd be expecting a history talk telling you something you don't know about, an interesting story from the past, perhaps. And that's not quite what this is. This is going to be about what the Trust has been up to over the last year and what we hope to be up to over the next few years, all things being well and good. Which hopefully you will find interesting. But I'm going to start with a little bit about me and my background, just to sort of put it all in context as to how I found myself with what I call the greatest job in the world. And it really is. Who gets to go to the Falklands for work? I say in inverted commas. So I'm going to share my screen now. And if somebody could give me a yes when you can see a picture of a big icebreaker. So in a minute, I will share. And if someone can give me a yes that they can see that.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Lovely. And that's filling up the whole screen for you, and you can't see all of my unintelligible notes?
Nope, can only see you.
But you can see the...
Hold on. Yes.
Yeah, you can see the presentation? Yeah?
Yes,
Yep.
all good.
Yep, all looks
Okay.
good.
Good. All right then. Excellent. Right. So, with no further ado, we're going to move on. So I am sometimes a bit tongue in cheek, sometimes refer to my career as a career in ruins, but I can't say that I came up with this title. I speak every other year at the University College London, at the Institute of Archaeology. They have a careers thing called Careers in Ruins. And it's all about how you find yourself in a job in heritage, which is actually quite difficult just to even imagine doing. But it is extremely rewarding and something I've always known that I've wanted to do, actually, from a very, very young age, which is unusual in itself. A little bit about me. So there's me with the wreck of the Jellum behind me. That was about 3 weeks ago. Look how sunny it is. It's gorgeous. So at the moment, I'm the Chief Officer of Falklands Maritime. Before that, I was the Chief Exec at the oldest mechanised paper mill in the world. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in a second. Before that, I was the Curator of London Fire Brigade Museum and Archive. And throughout, I've been on the board and more recently Vice Chair. And I think I've been roped into being Chair of the Emery Walker Trust, which is an arts and crafts house in Hammersmith. And I do a bit of sort of mentoring and advice and lecturing and training, all for free. I'm not a sort of a private consultant, but I help museums out with museum development, and I do a bit of emergency planning as well, which is what to do when things go wrong. As you'll see, I've got a bit of experience in that. So just very briefly, I just thought I'd talk about my experience with London Fire Brigade. We will get onto Falklands Maritime very, very soon. But I guess what I wanted to emphasise is stories. Stories are what matter. When I first started working at LFB, I thought, what is this going to be about? Just, fire engines and hoses. But it wasn't at all, really. It's about people and it's about stories and it's about... moments of extreme bravery and survival, that sort of thing. And as you can see, if you look at the picture on the top left, that's Brixton Fire Station, really early. That's you can see we've got horse-drawn fire engines. And what I like about that picture is nothing to do with the fire engines or the beautiful fire station. It's actually the kids on the escape ladder on the left, because families lived at stations. And the stories that came from that is how we engaged visitors with a museum that most people didn't want to come to. So I'd have visitors where there'd be, and I'll be honest with you, this was how it was. The fella was interested and wanted to learn about fire engines, and they would have their wife who did not want to know. But by the end of it, they'd all be in tears and absolutely love it and understand that all of the other stories that went with it. And that's kind of what I like doing, is picking stories out. It was very easy to do with things like the Second World War, Auxiliary Fire Service, top right, where 16 weeks training and you're dealing with a fire that, to put in context, if the Grenfell fire, we would call that a 40 pump fire. Fires in the Blitz were a 1,000 pump fire. And you'd had a couple of weeks training. Unbelievable. And I guided the museum with developing and designing a new museum, which they're still in the process of building in Lambeth. And then this is a little excerpt. I actually think this is from the Kelmscott Press. So at Emery Walker, so I sit on their board of directors, which is a voluntary position. And Emery Walker was a sort of a typesetter. He created the Doves Press. And again, arts and crafts, William Morris, there's lots of great stories, but the really good stories are the fact that he had a row with one of his colleagues who took all of the typeface and threw it in the Thames, and it's still being found now by mudlarkers. And only last year, a complete set of the typeface was found and put on display at the museum, because it's been in the Thames for over sort of 120 years. So again, it's all about story. So if anyone's in Hammersmith, do go to Emery Walker House. And then finally, I was the chief exec of Frogmore Paper Mill, which is the world's oldest mechanised mill. The machine you see in the top left is still there. They have a letterpress printing house, working paper mill, a bookbinding facility, and then a huge museum, shop and education suite as well. And the thing that was probably the hardest bit was 20,000 square feet of office space. So we were also a commercial landlord, and that was a bit much. But unfortunately, this happened 90 days after I started in the role as CEO. So hopefully you can see a video playing. So this is an enormous fire when two 15-year-old brats broke in, set fire to a cardboard box and put it against the back door. And it being a museum of paper, unfortunately, the fire spread very, very quickly. But it just so happens, as I've said to you all this evening, that I'd worked at London Fire Brigade for 10 years. And one of the things I've done there as a trained sort of conservator and museum curator was help them liaise with other museums about emergency planning for historic collections. So what would you do if this sort of thing happened? So I did training and helped museums write plans and went with the fire brigade to places like Westminster, the Natural History Museum, the Maritime Museum in Greenwich, and sort of talked about what they'd do if it all went wrong. And then it happened to me, which is quite extraordinary. So I arrived at the museum having been called in a panic by the manager to see this, which is paintings being carted out of the museum by firefighters. Now, luckily, we had a pretty robust emergency plan. When we went in, it was pretty dire. So here are some scenes from inside the museum. So all in all, it was about 800 square metres. That was the fire brigade who knocked all of that over, incidentally. And then here is yours truly in action, recovering original Postman Pat artwork and various other things. But the reason why I bring this up is because I think it's about leadership and it's about being well prepared. So because we were prepared, we managed to save about 90% of the collection, which you can see here, before and after. I do love a before and after picture. And you'll be pleased to know that I am spreading the love from my learning in this example with the team at the museum and the archives down in the Falklands, and making sure that their emergency plans are tip top. I mean, the archives plan was already excellent, but there to help where I can. So this is the sort of breadth of experience that I came along with when I was fortunate to get the position here at the Trust. So the picture I'm going to show you now, I do it just to be funny, makes me laugh. I put into an AI image creator maritime archaeology. And this is what it came up with, which is a really elaborate wreck with what looks like glowing gold in the hold and tropical fish, very shallow, and with rigging and things in excellent condition. So I thought it's not like that. It's more like this. So I do have an archaeological background, studied ancient history and classical archaeology at Warwick, and then archaeological site management and cultural heritage at UCL for my master's. And it's actually usually very difficult, maritime archaeology. It's only for the very brave and the very tough and the very patient. Sinking a trench into a field in Warwickshire is much easier, and just as soggy, actually. But this isn't what the Trust does, and I didn't think it was what it was when I took on the job. But this is what most people think is what we do, and we don't. It's now a real blend of tech and archaeology to do the impossible, really, which is, I think, what the Trust has done. So I arrived this time last year, and set about having a little look at what the trust had done and trying to think about what it ought to do going forward, what it could do, what do people want it to do. So rather than sort of say, this is what we're going to do, maybe ask people first. So I did a bit of sort of stakeholder engagement and asked some questions of people who wanted to speak to me about it. And what I knew before I joined was some of the big stories. I will, of course, talk about endurance in a second, but the Scharnhorst, actually, I knew I'd heard about it, the Lost Ships documentary. I knew and I had read up about some of the big significant wrecks around the Falklands. But the thing that really sort of stuck out to me when I started, and what I want to highlight to you all this evening, is actually the Trust's website, which hopefully you can see a screenshot of now, which is really very impressive. And I was impressed at the beginning, and I'm even more impressed now that I've hunted through every page of it. So we have an interactive wreck map, which you can see here. You can zoom in and out. There are really sort of well-written and well-researched stories. And we wouldn't have been able to do this without the help of some of the people on the call today. We've been working with Peter Beardmore, and the late John Smith, to really sort of flesh out the stories. And it is stories that were jumping out at me. So these incredible maritime stories that are so interesting. And of course, when I arrived at the Trust, the film of endurance had just really come out. And what I'm going to show you now is not actually been seen many times. This is one of the really high resolution 3D model images of the wreck of endurance. And this is really quite something, an unbelievable find, sort of the find of the century, and also extremely advanced technology deployed in order to be able to create something like this. So I said, right, okay, this is significant. This is very important. So this became a priority for me. And then obviously the film was hugely successful and generated a lot of sort of media interest. So that's kind of the situation that I was faced with when I first started. And then it became very, very clear that discovering the endurance is really just the beginning, I think, of a journey really to share this with the world. It's already done so much with the live education work during the expedition, but also the work that we've been doing since then. And the film, of course, being on Disney Plus is quite amazing. If any of you haven't seen it, streaming on Disney Plus now, Endurance, do go and take a watch. It is excellent. And if people have Sky TV, by the way, Disney Plus becomes free as of next month, which is just a little thing I have happened to find out the other day, which is a win. But what I also definitely realised within about a month of starting is that we're a very small organisation. It's just me, and some incredible trustees who help me out and do an awful lot and give a lot of time and have done over the last 10 years and will, I'm sure, continue to do so. But I knew that we'd need friends and support, and that's what I set out to do. So here is just a snapshot of some of the organisations that we have reached out to, some we already had relationships with, but some of them we didn't, and I went and made friends with them. You've got to get the government on board, of course, and then knowing where your bread is buttered, the museum and the archives on the Falklands. So I can see that Chloe's on the call today, and Chloe and I started having more or less monthly Teams meetings from when I started, which have been incredibly valuable, and it was wonderful to actually visit a couple of times over the course of my recent visit. And then you'll see there are some subsea companies there that supported the expedition itself, from Ocean Infinity, Saab, Voyas and Deep Ocean Search, but then perhaps some new connections with the British Antarctic Survey, who recently ferried, it's a very nice ferry, a model of the Endurance from the UK down to the Falklands, an amazing trip. And one that I'm just going to sort of point out to you there is Goodwood. So the Goodwood Foundation actually came to us and said, we're doing a tech festival, and as part of that we do an exhibition. Would you like to be involved? We've heard your story and we think it's really strong. And we said yes, we would. And that really, taking that opportunity when it was presented to us, led to some pretty amazing things, which I'm going to tell you about shortly. So this next slide just gives you a bit of a taster. I basically got on the road and started going and meeting people, talking to schools, meeting other museum professionals, traveling all around Europe and doing sort of small events to sort of gauge interest, I guess, to try and understand what people liked, what stories were good, and what people, to be honest with you, couldn't care less about, because that's important to know. One of the things that I also did was expand some of the Trust social media platforms. So they had an X or a Twitter feed, and they had sort of a burgeoning LinkedIn page. But I decided to go hard and go, Instagram, Facebook, everything. So here is just a snapshot of the Instagram posts over this year. So sort of well over 100 posts over the course of the year, and that profile's building, because this is the future, whether we like social media or not. It is important. And our goal for this year is to introduce more short form video content. So talking about history, talking about ships and naval battles, wrecks, other maritime stories in a more personable way is the way into the hearts of people who might otherwise not care. When we were thinking about this exhibition at Goodwood, one of the things that occurred to us and some of the teams who had been working on the Endurance expedition was the fact that we had a 3D model file of the wreck. We thought, well, if we've got a model file, we should be able to 3D print it if we can do it. So we did a design of what that might look like. So this is sort of 1.5 meters long. Would it show the topography of the impact crater around the wreck? Maybe. And this is kind of what we were dealing with. This is an aerial view of the photogrammetry model here. So we started working with an amazing model maker in the UK and a 3D printer specialist, really. And he started sort of messing about with it. And he came up with this. So he started making it in sections because it's so massive. And what he created, we're unbelievably proud of, and we exhibited it as part of the Goodwood Tech Festival, Future Labs it's called. And I'm going to show you a picture now. It's my favourite picture of all time, which is me and my best friend, Tim Peake. I say that because he kept coming back to our stand. So that's the astronaut Tim Peake at our stand, and with the model, the 3D print. So I'm going to tell you a bit more about that now. It's pretty massive, as you can see, in sort of comparison to me and Tim. It's made out of a thermoplastic called polylactide, which is actually biodegradable. So it's quite good for us as a heritage organisation because it's not a museum object. It will degrade after a few years and then go in the bin. Sounds outrageous, I know, but it is a biodegradable 3D print. It took 350 hours through the printer. It does include a lot of the topographical features. If you look at the picture on the right, you can kind of just see the ladder that was on the seabed quite close to the wreck. And you can see some of the initial impact craters. It's actually got rings of a seabed disturbance, as you would expect when something hits the seabed really hard. We made it in a number of sections, glued it together, and then sprayed it. We made an active decision not to paint it because you'd never get it exact. So we just went for a uniform colour. It looks quite macabre, but it's kind of, how would I say, appealing. People were just coming to the stand. It was luring people in like an anglerfish's lure. And most people in the Falklands, the team that we put on at Goodwood, or volunteers to support us. We had people from Saab, people from Voice, we had trustees and various helpers. Most people came up to us and said, "Is that the Titanic?" And, yeah, I know. And we said, "No. Thanks for coming over. Have you ever heard of the Falkland Islands? Have you ever heard of Ernest Shackleton? Have you ever heard of the Endurance?" And most people said no. And what I wanted to sort of stress to you guys this evening is, and something that I've had to get my head around, is that most people in the world don't know what it is. They've never heard of the Endurance. They don't know that we found it. Most people couldn't put the finger, to be honest, and point to the Falklands on a map either. And our job, I think, our charitable objectives, which is discovery and education, is actually that education piece more widely, which is, that's fine. Our job, our platform is to change that through interesting stories and cool projects like this. And it is cool. And we made it cooler by appealing to different learners, because not everybody wants to see a model. They want to touch stuff. It's not just the kids who want to touch stuff. I'll tell you, there are some adults who had to be told to step aside and let the kids have a go. Just to give you a heads up, we had 75,000 visitors across 4 days. It's a wild amount of people. So these are really sensitive, high-tech touchscreens, and we loaded the digital 3D model onto them so that people could zoom in and out. And what you can see, the text at the top says, "Can you find the ship's wheel? can you find a leather boot? Can you find a bell? So what we've tried to do is, without making it sort of too simple, is gamify it to make it a bit fun so that you have to look for something. And it went so well. It really did. And this is the sort of thing that we think we can roll out a little more widely and appeal to tens of thousands, if not millions, of people of all ages with these incredible stories that bring in not just the endurance, not just Shackleton, but the Falklands as well, and maritime archaeology, perhaps even pitching it as a career. We also had the massive Sabertooth that found the endurance. So we had a big bit of real kit, 3D print, interactive screen, and it just worked really, really well. Of course, with some great volunteers as well, some of whom are in the call. So what happens next? So that kind of summarises very lightly what I got up to last year. There was various other things that went on as well. Very exciting. We were sort of all over the place, really. We were up in Scotland, over in Germany, and I managed to get out to Ireland to see the new Shackleton Museum in Athy, near Dublin. Which is quite amazing. Because we don't have a museum, we are not a museum. I guess our role is to support and work with museums who might have a subject matter that links in with what we do. So talking about what happens next then is about planning, but I mean a loose plan. We did a sort of a 3-year draft structure, which we're all really happy with. But the trustees said very wisely, very sagely, let's not make that permanent until you've been to the Falklands. So this is one of my pictures on Kidney Island. It's one of the greatest days of my life. Humpback whale just over there. You can't see it in the picture, but it's there. And rockhopper penguins, which you can see just to the right. It really was extraordinary, and it did alter, adapt some of my plans, our plans for the future, which I'm going to tell you about now. But we are, I'm going to say opportunistic, but not like a vulture. What I mean is if something comes along, we'll take it. For example, the director of the Oceanology International Conference messaged me yesterday and said, do you want to do a thing at the massive, huge global conference trade show at Excel in March, on the 10th? I said, that's like a couple of weeks away. That's a month. That's less than a month. And he said, well, can you do it? I said, yeah. Will you speak? Yes, of course I'll speak. So we will take opportunities when they come to us, and very happily. So what's next? So we are absolutely thrilled. So Donald, coming up your way, and for everybody else in Scotland, there's going to be a sort of a real sort of Scottish extravaganza. We are absolutely thrilled to loan the model to the Dundee Heritage Trust. Discovery Point, next to Scott's Discovery, is undergoing quite a bit of work, but they have asked if they can display the model for their summer season, where they have tens of thousands of visitors. And we said, of course you can, with bells on, absolutely. And then this is quite a coup. We're really pleased about this. We were approached by the very prestigious artist Barbara Ray, who is exhibiting at the Royal Society in Edinburgh, a polar exhibition. And she said, would you loan the model for their display? And we said, absolutely, we'd love to. And they said, if it goes well, it's going to come down to London. And that is also very prestigious, and we would be thrilled. And that will be in 2027. So the whole of 2026, our 3D print is on a magical tour, and we hope to extend that to Europe, to Ireland, and perhaps further afield. So that is one of the things that I'm looking after over the next year or two, is this model, meeting new people, dating. Then this is the next project that we're working on. So no one's ever seen this before. Maybe there's one or two trustees or on this call who might have seen this, but nobody else on the planet will have done. This is a screenshot from a new web-based platform that the trust actually has been building for about 2 years, and that it's taken that long to load all of the data related to the endurance that can handle. Very difficult to find, but we found a company called Esri. So hopefully, I think I just froze. Sorry if I just froze. Can somebody give me a yes if they can still hear me?
Eleanor,
Cool.
We, your voice is breaking up a little bit. It may be a bad connection, and I think you did freeze briefly there as well. So let's continue and hope for the best. But if it gets too bad, well, I am not sure what we'll do. But it's probably okay. Let's carry on and see what happens.
Okie dokie. I've kicked everybody out, so I don't think anybody else here is on the internet. So this platform says web-based, and what we can do here is give access to researchers who can then conduct their own research on the wreck of the Endurance. So what I've demonstrated here for you now, the orange and white sort of little measurement, is one of the many tools that this platform has, which means that researchers can make accurate measurements, they can rotate the wreck, they can do all sorts of things. So this is a multi-beam point cloud of the wreck, but we have other things there. And you can see it says 8.25 meters, and we are confident that that is accurate down to less than a centimetre because of the equipment we used, which I'm going to tell you about a bit later. How's the sound now, Graham? Is that a bit better?
Yes, it is. You're not breaking up at all. Thanks.
Fabulous. And again, this is something no one else would have seen. On the left, you will see the photogrammetry model of the wreck of Endurance. And what photogrammetry is, for those who aren't sure, it's where you stitch together lots of images to create a 3D model or a bigger picture. So that's what's happening in the left. And this is actually the anchor of the Endurance. But what the team have done on the right is then found the corresponding super high definition 4K camera shot. And you can see that detail on the right. You can see the chain and the rope. You can see the fibers. And that really has not been done in this way. This is very innovative. And to create access like this is quite extraordinary. Now, you can do something with the Titanic wreck. You can pay money and do an app which lets you sort of fly around the wreck like a drone. But that's sort of a gamified platform. Ours is academic, ours is scientific. This is for researchers, and it's an enormous amount of effort has been put in to make it that way. And again, here I've shown to try and give you that example of how accurate that is. So this actually takes into account the size of the first impact crater, which you can see is 17.49 meters. And we're really proud to announce, I'm about to give you some absolute hot off the press information. So we have a press release under embargo, but tomorrow we will be announcing that we have been shortlisted from lots and lots of people for the Innovation Award for the people who build this software. Esri was so impressed with what we've done with it that we've been nominated for award, not just nominated, shortlisted down to the final 3 across the entire UK for use of what's called GIS technology, which is geographical information systems. So the award ceremony is in May. We're going to announce this tomorrow, and the award ceremony is in May. And even if we don't win, we're just really thrilled to have been nominated. So just to clarify, over the next few years, we're doing the model tour. We will be launching this academic scientific research platform, and then we're going to bring it closer to home. So hopefully you can see some lovely pictures. These are my own because, of course, I've just been. And this is about refocusing the lens back on the Falklands, which is what clearly came through to me from my conversations with people who have got a vested interest in what we do. Not every wreck has a famous name, but everyone carries a story. And it's not just the wrecks. I'm really interested in people. And what we'd really like to do is, as part of a wider piece into a maritime trail around the Falklands and supporting with things like exhibitions in the museum and obviously with the archives as well, is an oral history project. So that means sort of interviews with people who have got interesting things to say about their life at sea or in and around the shoreline of the Falklands, particular vessels, moments in time, or even stories they've heard that might have been passed down through generations. We want to capture that, and we're going to work with Portsmouth University, which you can see here, to make them into podcasts. So they have a channel, and we'll have little short podcasts where we can share these stories and keep them for posterity. And the hard copies will go to the archives with Chloe under her careful care. And we've been working with the Lloyd's Register Foundation, who are going to part fund this. So it's not a massively, it's not a huge project. We're talking about interviewing 10 to 15 people, perhaps later this year, doing a bit of research and collating the data that already exists, because there's some incredible information, as you all know, out there. So we've about halfway with our funding for this project, and we hope to start that in June this year and finish it in sort of December time. We'll also be working with the universities in Hull and Liverpool, who have got loads of academic data around ships that have since been wrecked on the Falklands. One of the other things we think this project might do is shine a spotlight on jobs at sea and its future. So we might speak not just talking about the past, but it's the future. So the current harbour master, the head of the Maritime Authority, whom I got to spend some time with when I was in the Falklands, the captain of the ferry and the Pharos, and understanding what that looks like now and how it's changed over time. And how that maritime culture is adapted is what we're looking to do. And this will be a big partnership with Portsmouth, Lloyd's Register, the archives and the museum. Okay, all right, this is the next one. And I can't tell you too much about this. This is a little bit secret, but I'll tell you a bit. Project Foxtrot is an idea at the moment, and it really is just an idea to try and utilise some of the technology available to us to go and do a rather significant wreck hunt. Some of the wrecks we know where they are, some we don't. But one of what we know is that we want to work with organisations such as perhaps the Royal Navy and some other subsea companies who have tech like this. So these are Hugens. They look like torpedoes, but they're not. So these are underwater vehicles of the type that we could use for this. And you'll be pleased to know we don't need a Polar Class 5 icebreaker, because we're not going too far. Because what we'd like to do is go back to the wreck of the Scharnhorst. I'm imagining that most people on this call know about the Trust finding the SMS Scharnhorst in 2019. But the reason why we want to go back, I'm going to highlight that now. So here is a scan we have of the Scharnhorst and images of, we've got some guns, taken with the cameras that were available at the time. This is only 2019. This isn't very long ago. When we went to Endurance in 2022, we used different kit. This is the Saab Sabertooth, which has got laser scanners, stills camera, LED lights, and a payload of other navigational equipment as well, which allowed us to do this. So gather that sort of 3D data and images of Endurance. And what it also allowed us to do was get much higher resolution images. So I'm going to show you a side by side. So we've got Scharnhorst on the left, and then we've got Endurance, the very famous image you will all have seen 10,000 times of the Endurance. Now, we can't compare because they're different, because the Scharnhorst is 90 kilometres, 90 miles off the coast of the Falklands at 1,600 metres, and the Endurance is in the Weddell Sea, protected by the circumpolar current, so there's no shipworm, and that's at 3,008 metres. But the clarity of the image, you can't compare. And I'm going to go one step further, because there's even more. There's more. If you look at this image, this is the Endurance standard camera. And then on the right is the voice observer imaging system. And they've got an even better one now, the stereo system, which they have said we can borrow. And what this does is it corrects colour. And it's a little bit of AI in here, not a lot, but a bit. So what it does is it takes like a colour chart, and it sort of tries to mitigate for the way that light behaves in water, which is underwater light's absorbed at a different rate. So what happens is reds and oranges disappear, and you end up with blue-green. So to restore the reds and oranges is actually just it's a formula. So it's scientific and mathematical to understand the colour. So we are confident that the picture on the right is how Endurance would look if you lifted her out of the sea. So that is the colour corrected version. And everything we did going forward would be like this. So the Scharnhorst wouldn't look blue. it would look like it does. I mean, obviously it's grey, but we'll see it in much better detail, because this also shows detail. I want to draw your attention to the bottom right. If you look in the blue image, you can't really see what's on the seabed. If you look at the image on the right, you can see bits of timbers, and that's significant because right at the bottom of the ship, by the keel, you can see the rudder. Now, the historical record says that the rudder was sheared clean off, but then we found it sat on the seabed. So that's clearly not what happened. It's still attached by a chain. And what we can see by some of that broken wood is perhaps inclinations as to how that happened, or the way it sheared. And that's helpful from an archaeological point of view. The other thing that has improved is the lasers. So we're going to talk about lasers. So if you look at this picture here, if you look at the stern of the Endurance and look at the rail that goes around the back, so that's where the ship's wheel is, can you see it looks like it's in 3 sections? So it's not uniform, it's not a complete semicircle, it looks jagged. And that's because laser technology, there's drift. So as the laser and the underwater vehicle is passing by on its pass, there's a bit of distortion and drift, and that drift can be up to 0.6 of a meter. So that's 60 centimeters, it's quite a lot. But they've got technology now that matches all of the points of interest up. So I'm going to show you another picture. And you will see, if you look at the rail at the stern again, it's a complete semicircle. And that's because what AI has done, and again, a bit of machine learning coming in, but in a good way, is it's matching up points of interest. So let's take the funnel, for example, which you can see fallen over. It will keep picking a point of that funnel, but then overlaying the other laser images so that they match up and they line up on top of each other. And that means if I zoom in for you, it is accurate to within less than a centimetre. So if we measure this, it is exactly correct, which means that we can tell you at which point it broke, so the sort of the point at which it snapped, and we can make lots of other archaeological discoveries based on the fact that this is correct to a sort of metrology level. So why? And I am kind of coming to a close now. Really, is to talk about why bother, why we do this, why it's important. And I think you can see by people's the amazement and being in just absolutely enraptured with what we do. We do it because people like it and they want us to. And I think the Finding Endurance, but also shipwrecks in general, discovery sort of tells people that there are still mysteries out there in the world. We haven't found everything yet. And there's some risk associated with it as well. There's storytelling with the finding, as well as once you discover what you're looking for. So the whole process is quite rich in stories. There's some environmental elements that we have to consider. So some of the wrecks around the Falklands are degrading at a much faster rate than everyone thought they might. It's getting windier, and sea temperatures, that sort of thing, is having an effect. So there's a timely nature to what we're doing, a bit of a time pressure. But what we want to do is sort of make these moments of discovery into sort of lasting experiences for people. I think that maritime heritage and the stories we tell link people to, I don't know, acts of courage, ingenuity, the past, and it shows us that, I don't know, there's challenge still out there, and a bit of curiosity to try and get the next generation off their phones and into a career like this, really. And that's why we do it. We do it because it keeps things fresh and exciting, and inspires people to, I don't know, take that step, say yes instead of saying no, and to sort of to live life because it's sort of like the only one you've got, and take risks, because it was a risk to go back looking for the Endurance, but it paid off. And if people were more risk averse, it would never have happened, and she'd still be at the bottom of the sea and nobody would know. So that's it from me. So we have a QR code there. So if you scan that, that will take you through to our website. And if you want to sign up to our newsletter, we'd be delighted. So we have a quarterly newsletter, just like you guys do, with some sort of interesting stories and news about what we're up to. And they are our social media platforms. So that's it from me. I am going to stop sharing, and then we'll all be back here looking at each other.
Graham, you're on.
Yeah, I'm not muted anymore. I was yapping away there without anybody hearing me. But Eleanor, thank you so much. That was absolutely fascinating. And what I want to do now is to ask if anybody has any questions. We have 15 minutes or so. So do feel free to fire away with your questions for Eleanor. And you can do this, you can let me know, because I have to click on you. You can let me know by raising a hand and I'll scan backwards and forwards. Switch your mics on, folks, if you would. Unmute yourselves. For a couple of reasons, in fact, but if you can unmute yourselves, whether you intend to ask a question or not, that would be really good. Thank you very much. And you can raise a hand, you can shout, or you can raise a little red digital hand. And so, anybody got questions?
Graham, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, Robin, go ahead.
It's obviously the model's going to be in big demand. Is there any plans to do another one in the near future?
Sorry, say that again. I missed the beginning.
Yeah, the model is you're going to have it in various places in the coming months.
Yeah.
Do you think there might be a need to do another model if it was possible?
1,000,000%. Yes. If we had another one, that is more people sharing the joy. Would you like to see something interesting and cool? I had a mini one made.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You might be able to sell those by the website.
Well, Robin, that's a good idea. So we're experimenting. We've got lots of things to think about because we don't do naff things. Things have got to be right. So this is a 40 centimeter. Look, it's literally stuck to the board. It's amazing. So this is a proto. It's just a proto. But yes, in terms of the big sort of display size ones, which need to be made in sections and then painted and sprayed and glued, we would love another one, and it would have huge impact. Going wherever it wants to go. They travel very well because it is the base, as you can see. It's sort of well printed on. So from a transport point of view, we have little perspex lids, and it does travel. This came to me in the post.
And how long does it take to make one of those?
This small one, like 6 hours. But the 3D printer who I work with, Mark, has just got a new printer, so I think probably quicker. But it's doable, and it's just getting better and better. The problem is because the wreck is so well preserved. Can you see the bits that are sticking out? Some of the masts at different angles. They are a bit precarious. So this isn't a leave it out and let kids grab it model. It's not tough enough. But we're going to experiment next week with spraying it with resin to make it more secure. But we had 75,000 people at Goodwood and nobody broke it. And it didn't have a case around it. It was almost just like it just had a wide plinth. So yes, we can print more. Nobody else can, because obviously we're the only ones with the digital model, and we own the intellectual property, so it is ours. But it's very cool, isn't it?
Well, it'd be good to have a backup in case anything happens to the original.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because it does take 350 hours to print another one. We would like to. They are not cheap though, so that would be in our fundraising plans for the future. They're not horribly expensive. They're the right side of 10 grand, but they're not cheap.
No. Thank you.
No problem.
Next question, Karen. Let's find you. Yeah, go ahead with your question, Karen.
So thank you for an absolutely fascinating talk. But I just wondered, are there any plans to help preserve some of the wrecks that are in Stanley? So for the Lady Liz, the Jellum, what's left of the Jellum?
It's a fantastic question. And yes, is my short answer. But if I can elaborate, there isn't a heritage plan as far as I'm aware. So I've spoken to the governor, I've spoken to the chief exec at Falklands Islands government, and obviously the team at the museum and the archive. So there isn't a document of how that's going to be protected as far as I'm aware, unless it's under someone's desk and they didn't find it. So I think the first step is actually to collaboratively work, and I'm more than happy to help on a plan really of what needs to be done. I do know that the trust is going to support a student from the University of Oxford who's working with the South Atlantic Environmental Research Institute. Her thesis, she's a PhD student, is wrecks as markers of climate change. So she's going to go and look at a few wrecks and then monitor them every 2 years to see how much they've. But she's not just looking at their degradation, she's also looking at marine life, because she's looking at things like plankton and kelp and algae and fish and things like that. But it's an interesting project that I think we're going to try and support her with in any small way that we can. So that's happening. But I think the first step is to do a bit of an assessment of what we've got. So the project I mentioned with Lloyd's Register is collating the data that we have. So it's an audit that I basically want to find out who knows what, who's got what, look at pictures, because there's tons of pictures. I mean, I know people who, the wife of somebody in this call who takes a picture of the Lady Liz every day, and we could create like a time lapse with just people's photographs, because they're heavily photographed, and we can do it like that with AI nowadays. So we can upload vast quantities of data and end up with reports, which would be quite useful. So I think we need to find out what data we've got, and that this project is going to do that. We need to work with the authorities to come up with a plan, and then we need to do a conservation plan and an at-risk register for the wreck. So that's what I'm used to doing with sort of like UK archaeology. You'll do what's most at risk, and then you go down in a row. Some things are very difficult to preserve, and some things shouldn't be meticulously conserved. That's not, the passage of time is not, it's not meant to be for everything to be pristine in a museum. I've written a theory paper about that. If anybody's interested in the theory of collecting and preserving, I can send it to you. But I think what we'd like to do in perhaps 2027-8, funding dependent, is at the very least use the laser scanning technology that we use in Endurance for the wrecks around Stanley. So we can LiDAR scan them and create a 3D model which preserves, even digitally, what we've got left. And we can then use them to monitor degradation way more accurately, because they're now centimetre perfect, thanks to us. And I will say that the technology was innovative, used on Endurance, and 6 months later they used it on Titanic. And now it's just even better. It's a twin camera system, and they can create 3D models in real time. It's absolutely unreal what can be done. So that's what I think should be done, just for what it's worth, but happy to follow up with conversations. But it is important. It is on our forward plan, and I feel quite strongly about it. So yes is the answer. We ought to do more, and we are, and we will.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Any more questions?
Yes. Hallam, I've got a question.
Okay, Hallam. Yeah.
Eleanor, you must be working 24 hours a day to have achieved what you've been telling us about tonight. I mean, I've just mind-boggled. Did I mishear you, or are you the only employee?
I'm the only employee.
Well, goodness me.
Keep going, because trustees are on this call, so do carry on.
Well, I have photos of all the wrecks from 1988. Those are the only ones. I can let you have them any time.
Yes, please. I shall follow up with you after this.
Good.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyway, congratulations. Goodness,
Thanks.
your enthusiasm, it comes right over.
I do love it. It's the best job I've ever had. I've had a few. I've had some really good ones. I've had a few rotten ones. But yeah, this is a privilege, actually. It's a privilege to be able to follow on from what the trust has achieved over the last 10 years without any staff. Absolutely unbelievable what was achieved by the trustees. It is unbelievable. To sort of pick the torch up and push that forward is really the privilege of my life. So I'm really thrilled, and I intend to do it for the coming future.
Fantastic. Thanks so very much.
Good. Any other questions from anybody, please? Colin.
Yes.
Colin Young.
Yeah, I was greatly intrigued by the way this had been constructed, and I wondered if you could sort of work backwards in a way, because one of the vessels deeply associated with Falklands, of course, is the Great Britain. And I was disappointed. I remember running along girders underneath her when she was lying in Sparrow Cove, jumping from one to the other. I was younger then, mind you. And when I went to see her in Bristol, where she was reconstructed, I thought, this isn't my Great Britain. And they had gone back to what she was when she was launched and recreated it. And it was almost, to me, a pastiche. So would it be possible to create through AI, not necessarily models or anything like that, but a representation of how the Great Britain went through all her many manifestations and eventually arrived at the one that, well, I was going to say we know, which some of us know, which was either anchored, I can't remember it being anchored there, of course, I'm not that old, but those of us who are sitting out in Sparrow Cove and create a sort of story, because her link with the Falklands is immensely strong, I would have thought, and there's the Brunel connection and all the rest of it, and she's a very, very historic vessel and would give us a great deal of Falklands publicity if used in the way you've been talking.
The answer to your question is yes, and I know the technology that would be used. So it's called, well, what I would use is called augmented reality, or AR. It's actually not new. It's been around for about 10 years. And effectively, the way that we could be done, and this could be online, but for people, say, visiting Stanley, for example, you can create, it's a bit like an animation. So let's say, and I know that, let's just use any ship in Stanley Harbour, for example, like, I don't know, like the Charles Cooper, let's say, for example. If you were standing where her wreck was for a while, you could look through your phone. So you could scan a QR code or something. You could look through your phone and you would see her sailing into harbour. It was like a little video. You would then watch her, I don't know, I think was she used as a storage, like a jetty heady kind of thing. I can't remember. And then you would then watch her sort of fall apart over time, and then bits be taken away, and then it would end up as it is now. So you'd almost see, like, you'd see it happening in a short sort of 15, 20, 30-second clip, really. And if there's a really cool feature, augmented reality means you point your phone at something so you can see the real world behind it, and then something kind of fake, if you like, sails in. So you could point your phone at Stanley Harbour and watch historic vessels sail in as they would have done, which is quite extraordinary, really. And this technology exists. And so we would like to do something like that. And we can do it with the Great Britain. That's not impossible. In fact, it's very possible and very doable, and is part of this really longer term plan to do more around Falklands wrecks and those key vessels. They don't have to be wrecks, but key vessels from its past.
Incidentally, Alan mentioned photographs. If you want a few of the Great Britain from the 60s, I sent a few down to the museum, if you can find them there.
Thank you very much. I will do. I'll follow that up.
I think I've still got the originals, but where they are, archives are a mystery to me at the moment. Never mind.
Colin, thank you very much indeed. Right, we're probably approaching the end of our allocated time, but would anybody else like to?
Can I just ask Elena if she's aware that I think John Smith's son is called Jeremy Smith, and with a small group of people, he's working on a book documenting all the known shipwrecks of the Falkland Islands. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I believe that we are supporting it.
Yeah, because I'm helping him as best I can with one or two details. So he might be asking certain people for information because he's trying to find the exact location of every shipwreck, which is a bit difficult. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, we are waiting for the book. I do believe that Menson's written the foreword for it, and we can't wait for it to come out, and I do believe we've been involved in the process. Yes, we shall make a big song and dance about it, and what we'd like to do is pull some stories out and just share that with the world. What I didn't mention, and I know we're running out of time, Graham, so I will stop, is we have a huge web audience now. So we get lots of people visiting our website, and because that is our window really into the trust. We don't have a museum, but we have a really an amazing audience, but 50% of them are from the United States. A lot, if you think about a lot of cruise ship passengers, they're American, and there's a lot of maritime museums in America. They're into it, they like it. So yes, we would like to. The trust wants to use its platform, which is quite public and strong, to highlight stories that maybe other people wouldn't even think to learn about. So that's our goal, really. The Endurance is a beacon above our head, like a lighthouse to ships at stormy seas, and we lure people in and then say, "There's more where that came from. Have you heard about?" And then tell them more.
Robin, just very quickly, we have actually we will actually pay for the publication of John's book.
Yeah, I mean, I sent him a map that was inside a first day cover in, I think it was, can't remember the exact date, and John did a map, and he pinpointed with a letter 60 shipwrecks around the Falkland Islands, which I sent a copy of to Jeremy. But he's trying to get an exact location, so I don't know how difficult that's going to be.
Just to clarify, I'm curious, John, with help, perhaps managed to complete the manuscript of his book before he passed away. Is that right?
If you look at a photograph of John, I think it was on the FIA website shortly after he died, there is a map, this famous map, which is shown behind him. But it's not the same map that was with the first day cover, which has a dot, sort of X marks the spot. His famous map shows a ship in a certain position around the islands, which doesn't really give you an exact location. But the map in which he did in the first day cover sheet gives an X marks the spot. Yeah. So Jeremy, there's Joan Spruce, Natalie Smith, Nikki from the museum, and Jim McAdam. They're working on it at the moment.
Yeah, they are.
Can't wait for it to be done. Be great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good. So, I think we've got time just maybe for one more question, if in fact anybody has another question. Neil Rankin, go ahead, please, Neil.
Well, really, it's more of an inquiry. I thoroughly enjoyed the lecture. I have a facility up at Edinburgh at Britannia for temporary exhibitions, and I'm wondering whether or not, when you're up in Scotland, you might wish to take advantage of that facility and maybe do something up at Britannia.
It's extremely kind of you. I shall follow up with you after this call, and we'll get in touch.
Would you please? Thank you.
Yes,
very much.
I will. Thank you very much for the offer.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. And I think that well, if you're in UK, it's 8 o'clock. And I think we have some people in the audience who are from other parts of the world. I know Ken has joined us from Uruguay. Lovely to see you again, Ken. And I'm not sure if there's anybody from the Falklands still with us. But anyway, here in the UK, it's 8 o'clock, which means it's probably time for dinner, or time for us to carry on with other things that we're planning this evening. But I just want to thank Eleanor very genuinely and very much indeed for a fascinating hour, and it's really heartening to see so much work being done, and admirable to see you doing so much of it. So if you could possibly unmute yourselves, please. I see a few people have still got your microphones muted, so right now unmute yourselves if you would. Good. A few people are doing it. That's great. So, Eleanor, thank you very much indeed again, and I'd like to everybody to put their hands together, please.
Marvelous. Bravo. Well done.
My pleasure. It really is my pleasure. If anybody had their hand up and had a question and I didn't answer it, please do email me. It's eleanor@fmht.co.uk, and please get in touch. I'm very friendly, and I'll be really, really happy to chat to you. Or you can call. I like a phone call. Teams call, any type of call. I work by myself, so please do call me. So thank you all so much. It was a pleasure.
Repeat your email
Yes.
address once more, Eleanor, just in case anybody.
I will also write it in the chat. It's Eleanor, spelled ELENA, at fmht.co.uk.
Good. Thank you so much again, and thank you
Pleasure.
everybody who's joined us this evening at this talk in our series, our sort of winter series, our second winter series of FIMA Friends talks. So we're coming to the end of it now, but we still have a talk to come from David Tatham, who of course is the powerhouse behind the Dictionary of Falkland Biographies. Falkland Dictionary of Falkland Biography. There is no S on biography for a reason unknown to me, but David's coming up fairly soon, and we'll look forward to having you all back then. So please look out for more news from the FIMA Friends, and thank you all again. And I'm now counting down 5 to 0, and I'm going to switch us all off.
Quick one. Was David
Biography is a collective noun.
Well done.
Sounded like somebody was asking a question.
Yeah, David's lecture, was that the 19th?
Yeah, without consulting my diary, I believe it is. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you, everybody, and good night. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.